Hi, I'm Josie Hernandez. I'm president of Association Latinos, and with me today is Jackie Gomez, CEO of the Hispanic American Construction Industry Association, also known as HACIA.
Hi.
Welcome, Jackie.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Okay, we have a couple of questions for you to answer today, and I'll start with the first one, which is what inspired you to lead an organization focused on serving the Latino community, and how do you see your work impacting your members?
So I really enjoyed this question because I really thought I was going to venture off in the world of finance. But I had the opportunity of starting out my career working with a Latina. And she reminded me a lot of many of my aunts, and she ran a small business. And I really got a good sense of what it's like and all the barriers that small businesses face. And I won't bore you with the long history of how I transpired to my career right now, but because of that one pivotal moment early on in my career, I had the opportunity to learn more about small businesses, supplier diversity, the importance of DEI, right, diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. And it created this passion and fire within me to finding greater ways to create those opportunities. And I think it's now become a passion to create equitable opportunities. I thrive off of finding ways to break down barriers. And so I think that's what's inspired me to take on this position to lead the organization. And it's a 45-year-old organization. And being a Latina in a male dominated industry is no easy feat, but it's been, I think, very successful. The organization has grown, and I see the work that HACIA has done, and I would call it that it's transformative. We provide vital tools, training, and resources to our members so that they can thrive in the construction industry. And ultimately, what we want to do is build generational wealth to strengthen our communities.
That's amazing. Thank you. I see it in your social media posts. So I think that's also important that the message is getting across, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go on to our next question. In your opinion, what are the biggest challenges and opportunities facing Latinos, not just in the field you support, but in the association space as a whole?
Across the board, it's having access, whether it's capital, resources, and fair and equitable opportunities. Even as a nonprofit, I find myself also advocating just for the organization to have funding, for us to be considered when some policies are being decided. I think you're right, beyond just the construction industry. We face as a community sometimes the fear of speaking up and then get maybe retaliated against or blacklisted, if you will. But there's a professional way of still asking and demanding what you think is right and fair. So I think it's being a connector. I say harmonizer because I recently took a leadership assessment, and that was one of my strengths that came out as a harmonizer, which makes now a lot of sense. When you're trying to reach a compromise, being in that mindset helped tremendously. So I'm learning to leverage my skill set that I didn't know I had. And then being just driven, right? You have to be driven, you have to have that mission. And then I think all those traits will allow us as Latinos, as a community, to build those strong relationships and push our initiative forward. That's what I would say are some of the challenges that we need to have those opportunities.
Thank you. What skills or traits have been essential for you as a leader in a Hispanic serving organization, and how have they helped you succeed?
I may have already added a little, started answering that one a little bit with my previous one. So I think in general, in any industry that you are in, a strong trait will always be a strong communicator. Because if you can't deliver the message that you're trying to deliver, it's going to not land. I think realizing that it's okay when someone says no, you get the door closed. It's not so much that you get the no, it's how you're going to handle the situation. So the perseverance, the connector. I'll again state my previous answer a little bit, the being a harmonizer, because you need to know and be able to read the room. Sometimes it's going to go your way and sometimes it's not, and you don't have to get always defensive about it. And I think that sometimes as a community, we might take things a little personal, and it may not be, and it really may not be. And so having that perseverance, the adaptability, just to navigate all the challenges that are going to come across our way, because they're always going to be there. That's helped me lead this organization. I'm not gonna lie, I think we get often, and I'll speak maybe as a Latina, the imposter syndrome sets in sometimes. And so I'll have that conversation with myself in the mirror in the mornings, and I tell myself, not today, right? Like, we're gonna be fine. You can do it. You've been doing it, and we're gonna continue to do it. With a strong team, a lot could get accomplished.
Thank you. Those are some really great answers. And what really resonates with me is, as you said, sometimes we face very challenging situations, right? Specifically, Hispanic serving organizations, because a lot of the challenges that we face come around bias, right? And so, how we manage that, to your point, and having to reframe also our perception of things.
Right.
Because I think I heard you say that sometimes it's not personal, that we take things personal, but it's not personal. And we have to reframe that perception of how that is. So that resonates a lot with me also. Thank you. And then our final question is, what advice would you give people aspiring to lead or create organizations that champion our community and its unique needs?
I love this question because I see it happening all the time where, because we are a membership organization with over 300 members, and I already know sometimes someone's going to feel like they're not being heard, or they feel like I could do things differently, and they might say, I can just start my own organization, which is fine, right? It's always like, as long, the more sometimes the merrier, but maybe not always. And so what I would say is always build your network and don't burn your bridges, right? Because we're stronger in numbers. And so we need to have, and that's why I mentioned earlier, you need a strong team, you need that village, you need your community to come through when you are trying to make big change. It's one of those, like, we do a lot of advocacy. I need my members to show up. I need our community to show up and talk about the barriers that they face. So it's not just me saying, this is what a member is saying that's hurting them, and so that's why we want to change legislation. No, when our legislators hear various members talk about the same issue, then more could be done. And so that's why it's building that strong network, fostering collaboration, working together, and just staying like relentless in breaking barriers. And didn't work one year, we're going to go again next year, right? And so it's that persistence and staying true to your mission. And don't lose sight of that North Star, because we can get buried in a lot of busy work sometimes. And so I have to remind myself, why is it that I'm doing the work that I'm doing?
Thank you. Those were really great answers. Thank you, Jackie, for your time.
I hope that.
One thing that stood out from one of your answers that I just wanted, since we're talking, but I did some research a couple years ago, just again on this idea of how Association Latinos can serve Hispanic serving associations, right? And I put together a list of Hispanic serving associations. And one of the things that stood out is that many of them have been around for many years. You noted this organization has been around for 45 years. But I think a lot of associations maybe aren't well known, Hispanic serving ones. And so there's, like, your organization, I feel, is extremely dynamic, has done a lot of work. Do you want to speak to that? Have you seen a shift in recent years? What are your thoughts around that? What does that longevity mean? And what is happening in the most recent years? What has that change been like?
Yeah, that's a really good observation and question. So I remember HACIA back when I started in supplier diversity about 17 years ago. I actually used to work at HACIA 15 years ago. So I've known HACIA for a really long time. And so the evolution of it has definitely shifted. Sometimes as nonprofits, particularly, we find that you have to be careful with the dollars. We get a lot of grants, or it's limited revenue. So you don't invest in some of the things that you think may not be worth it. And so when I came on about 3.5 years ago, my directive from the board was, we want to take and elevate HACIA and bring it to that next level. And so I took some, I would call a little bit risk decisions, where we're going to invest in some branding and marketing. We're going to redo this. Who are we? What do we stand for? So we redid our vision. We redid our mission statement. And it seems simple, but for nonprofits, because you're always in the just day to day, you don't think about those things. You're like, that's our mission. We don't need to change it. But no. And that gave us a refresh of a reminder, that's what we're doing. Let's talk about it. Let's bring it up again. and invested in a marketing team, invested in a marketing consultant, because we're doing all this good work, but sometimes we're not showing it to the world what we're doing. And we think everyone knows because we're doing it. So of course they know. We're like, of course they know. But no, there's always posts and social media and everything happening that if we're not always top of mind, people won't remember. So that was one thing I ensured that we focus on, and we still to this day still talk about like how do we continue to innovate so that we continue to grow and scale. Another thing that's difficult to do, but I'm trying to do is like collaborate with some of our sister agencies that are also with the mindset of diversity and inclusion. There's the Federation of Women Contractors, the Black Contractors Owners and Executive. Like those are what I call like sister organizations with the same overall mission of inclusion and equity. And so it's like creating partnerships. Back to that alliance is so important. And so that's like some of the things that we've tried to do a little different and be more collaborative from that perspective.
That's very exciting to hear in terms of the investment and the marketing piece of it, right? To let people know what your value proposition is. And so that led me to my next question, because you also have most associations, maybe not all, but there is that idea of external stakeholders, people who are not your members, and sponsors and allies, especially when we talk about diversity. And I just wonder what impact that, if there's any, that you can share from the marketing investment that you made in those people who also, it's important for Association Latinos, that has been a big part of our success, are the people in the community who are non-Latino but want to support us. And so I wonder if what impact, if you've also felt that, and if you can talk about that a little bit.
100%. Absolutely. And so I often tell people, because now, again, as a membership organization, you would think we represent only Hispanics, but we actually have a diverse group of members. The majority are Hispanic-owned businesses. But in the recent years, we've been seeing a shift of members and interests that want to be part of the organization because we redid our mission statement, we realigned it, we did a survey talking about stakeholders. We didn't just interview our members. We went outside of our membership and said, you're part of our stakeholder, like government agencies. We consider them a stakeholder because a lot of our members work and do business there. Elected officials or supporters, right? Donors. We've asked them and interviewed them, like, what is a value to you? What does HACIA mean to you? And so we took all this information, and out of that came out a strategic plan, our 3 pillars of what we want to deliver. And one of them is to be collaborative, right? It's not just an organization for Latinos, while it does serve and represent the majority of them, but we are bigger and stronger, and we add more value when we have alliances across the board. And I think that's what, again, the value proposition is, that we believe in diversity, right? And we believe in generational wealth, and we want to transform communities that look like us. So yes, that's absolutely something that we considered and we did do. We're going to do another reach out to our stakeholders that are not just our members and that are not just Latinos, to ask them to help us out and what do they like to see in HACIA in the near future.
That's great. That's very exciting. I personally think, from what I see, that HACIA has a lot of success ahead of them, especially under your leadership. So it's been great chatting with you. Thank you.